All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're back with the Freddy is Ready podcast, episode 6. I believe this is episode 6. I think it's number 6. This is sixth week we've been recording this show. Really happy with the way it's going. Really happy with the attention it's getting. You know, we're moving forward, getting some noise, which is all we want. I appreciate everybody reposting and posting. I really appreciate it. Doesn't go unnoticed. Don't get for sure doesn't get noticed. So we got a big weekend, guys. We had a really big weekend. Obviously, the Super Bowl was the big weekend. I predicted it right, but we'll get into that a little bit later. We got a UFC card. We got Strickland versus DDP, along with Zhang Weili versus DD with Tatiana Suarez on that card. We're gonna review a little bit of Cannonier and Gregory Rodriguez from the UFC, which will be coming up this Saturday. We're gonna go over February 14th a little bit with the fight with Barichek and Keyshawn Davis, and then we're gonna go over some NBA news. And then we'll cover some MLB a little bit. We'll get into some Instagram questions. MLB is gonna be a little quick, short segue. My favorite. MLB is my favorite sport to watch. So yeah, let's just get into the big one. Super Bowl. I predicted Eagles were gonna win. They won 40-22. This wasn't the way I thought they were gonna win, but they did whoop some ass. I think that I mentioned on the pod that this was going to be a battle of the trenches, and I think that's literally what it came down to, was that the Chiefs were just so under. I'm sorry, they just had way less talent than I think the Eagles did. And Eagles, right away, when you would have mentioned their dogs, you had Jalen Carter who was in there, you had Sweat who had a hell of a first half. You had all these guys who were just getting in there and bulldozing Mahomes. And the big things of these teams from the last couple games that the Chiefs have been playing, that those teams really haven't had a good pass rush. The Texans did with Will Anderson Jr., but a lot of the flags were being thrown when he would hit. So it did come into effect, and that penalties were a disaster in the Houston game. But with this game, the Chiefs had times to score. They didn't have enough time to score, but it wasn't like the game got away ugly right away. It was 7-0, 10-0 till the second quarter, and then going into the half. That's when the Eagles exploded for the pick six and all. And I think the Chiefs really just really realized what level the Eagles were and the level the Chiefs were. And I mean, the Eagles were up here, Chiefs were down here. And everybody else was right there. And I would say some teams in the NFC I think would have beat the Chiefs. I think the Lions probably would have. And the way the Commanders balled, possibly the Commanders, I do think those teams were more talented and at a higher level. I think the Bills probably would have matched up better with the Eagles in terms of, I think Josh Allen probably would have performed better. But I think the Eagles just would have beat everybody in this playoff. This was a beatdown from the get-go. I mean, when you have to look at it, yes, a lot of the talk goes to the MVP, which is Jalen Hurts. I mean, what a game. 17 for 22 completions, 221 yards, 2 passing touchdowns, 72 rushing yards, led both teams, quarterback, and a rushing touchdown. Got himself the MVP, clap it up. Jalen Hurts, baby. And this is huge for Hurts, man. I mean, I owe him an apology. A lot of people owe him an apology. This is a guy who really faced a lot of criticism in terms of his passing ability, which, I mean, I wouldn't say it was unfair to give him that ability, as he didn't really showcase it a lot. And for the Eagles being one of the worst passing teams, it's almost justifiable. It's justifiable. It's justified on why people were making this claim. But he really balled out. I mean, he threw that one pick. That one pick was he got blitzed, just threw it up, which was a dumb bonehead move. But I mean, it didn't really matter to be honest. I think it would have hurt him more if this would have happened. But he performed at such a high level, and I think part of it was the Eagles' O-line picking up on blitzes and then he giving him more time. But he just knew how to scramble at moments where he needed to scramble. Wherever he would where he would get a sense of urgency, he would scramble, and a lot of the field would be open. A lot of times where he'd be dropped back in the pocket, pick up, nobody's open, boom. It was almost like he didn't pick. His first read wasn't picked up or wasn't open. He was gone, right? And it's almost like the Chiefs didn't prepare for that. And I said the difference maker was going to be Saquon Barkley, and I stood by it, and I still would have thought it would have been, but I think the Chiefs prepared so much for Saquon because they stopped him. I mean, I believe he had 50 something yards, and they did try to run the ball out with him. He had a decent amount of carries. But when you look at it, it was almost as if the Chiefs over prepared for Saquon, which I mean that's hard to say. That's almost sounds like an understatement, right? For any team to under prepare for over prepare for Saquon. But I did mention it to a lot, and a lot of my coworkers heard this, and I can't remember if I said it on the pod, but I think I did. The Chiefs blitz a lot, leaving guys like AJ Brown, Devontae Smith one-on-one is a mistake. And I don't think the Chiefs have the secondary to compete with them either. When you look at the Eagles, they're probably the best built team in football. The Lions were competitive, but they just got faced with too many injuries and whatnot. But the Eagles were just so talented and complete as a team. The Chiefs, on the other hand, their defense was good. It was good. It wasn't the best in the league, but it was good. But the big thing that they carried was, we have Patrick Mahomes. We have Patrick Mahomes. We have Patrick Mahomes. We have Patrick Mahomes, which is cool and all. You know, that's a good thing. But what happens when you get those big boys in Philadelphia coming into town, you know? When you got guys that are just more complete as a team. You get me? A team that's just as good, better offensively, and also they could kick your ass on defense, which they did. And that was the main difference, was Philadelphia was just so complete, and they didn't have a narrative of, our quarterbacks, we have the best quarterback, we have the best quarterback. And that could be something that puts your team in a deficit. And the reason I say that is because look at the Buffalo Bills. The Buffalo Bills, it's almost like they think they know they're always going to be good because of Josh Allen. Who won the MVP? I predicted that. I thought he was going to be the MVP. You know, I did say Saquon's a better player, but I think he's the MVP. But like I was saying, it almost diminishes the thought of we need to get better. And I think the Bills understood that really, really, really well this year. Because, yes, you win against Patrick Mahomes, which is, okay, who do you want, Allen or Mahomes? Mahomes has the rings, but it's almost as if Allen is his 1B. And yes, I think Allen is probably the second best quarterback in the league, and I think it's Allen and Burrow and nobody else. And Lamar, I think those three guys are in the mix for second best. But you have to really think of, can these guys do it themselves? And the answer is no, they can't. Mahomes has rings, but he had Kelsey, who was balling. They had Tyreek Hill, who was balling. And Kelsey had a terrible game, right? And Mahomes had an even worse game. I mean, Mahomes threw 2 picks. One was a pick 6. And those plays looked like they were going nowhere, right? Excuse me. The Eagles dominated the Chiefs by 40 points, or they scored 40 on them. And Saquon, I think, only had 50-something rushing yards. Let that sit in for a bit. Who would have told you that Saquon Barkley would have rushed for 50 yards and they would have won and put 40 on the Chiefs? It doesn't make sense. It doesn't. It just doesn't make sense. And this is what I'm trying to get to about these organizations thinking that we have this quarterback. We have this quarterback. We got Joe Burrow. We got Josh Allen. We got Patrick Mahomes. We got Lamar. And I think the Ravens did do a good job of going to go with these pieces, right? It just didn't work out. They just ran into Josh Allen. But it's almost as if I think the Chiefs are really going to go out and get pieces this year. And I think they're too smart of an office to sit back, because it's like I mentioned, the idea of getting better every year gets diminished automatically, right? And the reason is because they're holding on to this thought of this ideology, this theory of, we have Mahomes, we can win, we can beat everybody, which might be the case. You could beat everybody, but Jalen Hurts isn't a slouch either. He's not. Jalen Hurts is a really good player, and a lot of times people really get carried away with the narrative of, Hurts isn't a good passer or not. He is. He just doesn't need to, because he has a guy who could rush for 150 yards a game in any given game against any defense, right? So that's where it really starts to take over, and people have to realize that these teams are making it easier for their quarterback. And that's why their quarterback doesn't shine. Jalen Hurts doesn't have to throw for 250 yards. He doesn't have to. But guess what? At any given moment, he can throw for 230. Two passing touchdowns, or rushing touchdown, against a team who was one of the top defenses of the league. And that this is crucial. This is very crucial for teams going forward. I mentioned on the last podcast, Josh Allen needs to go to the front office and say, I need pieces now. And that's what I think is going to happen really with these teams. And if they don't, they're going to get bounced easily. The Chiefs, if they don't get better, they're going to get bounced early next year. Early. And I know a lot of people say that, but it's the Chiefs for whatnot. We might be thinking too premature. We might be thinking too biased because of what just the recent events that just went on. But when you look at it, the Ravens are just a really good team. The Ravens, I think, were really going to be beneficial. I think they opened up as the favorites for next year. The Chiefs are also favorites, which I don't understand at all. I mean, obviously that could change within a pick or two, but come on, like, what do they have that's going to make them better in a year? Kelsey's getting worse. Kelsey led them in yards this year. Like, how are the Chiefs going to be the favorite if they're going to need another wide receiver? One Xavier Worthy, I think, is going to step up, but D-Hop's going to be not. D-Hop isn't going to be beneficial to them. Travis Kelce isn't going to benefit them as much. Hollywood Brown's solid, but he's not a game changer. So I think the Chiefs are going to need to sit down and evaluate and say, what can we do? Who can we go out and get? They're going to need another receiver. That's the main thing. They're going to need a receiver and possibly get another back. I think Hunt and Isaiah Pacheco are good enough, but they're not game changers. And that's the Chiefs are needing to start getting to. They need to get the ideology out of their head of, we have Mahomes, he could beat anybody. No, go out and make it easier for him. Go out and get these players that'll be like, fuck, you got Mahomes and you got this wide receiver that they got. That now it's before when they were winning a lot of championships, which was I know last year and the year before, but it was, damn, they got that tight end Kelsey, man, and Mahomes. But now who do they got? Kelsey's not there no more. He's physically not at the physically he's not capable to do what he did last year, right? And he still led his team in yards, which isn't a good thing. Which, yes, it might be a pat on the shoulder for him or pat on his back, but it's not a great thing for that team to have. That great issue for that team to have. It's a bad issue. So I think they need to go forward and put it out there in terms of the GOAT debate. It's over. Brady's the GOAT, and I don't want people thinking, this, that. No, Brady's the GOAT. And if whoever thought Kelsey was the GOAT tight end is not, it's Rob Gronkowski. And the reason Rob is the greatest is because the guy could just block anybody. It's a tight end position. People people don't understand this for baseball, for any other sport. Like for Han Soto, we'll get into a little later. People think he's the best player in baseball because he can hit, because he can walk. Guess what? That's only a third of the game. What's the other third? What's the other two parts of the game? Guess what? There's base running and there's defense, and he's horrendous at both. Don't tell me he's the top 5 player in baseball. He's not. Which I'll get into, and I have a top 10 list, and I might contradict myself because I have him high up on my list for 2025, but right now he's not better than a lot of these guys. He's not better than Ohtani. He's not better than the Judge. He's not better than all these guys because these guys can honestly really hit the shit out of the ball and go play defense, go base run. They could go do all this stuff, and he can't. And that's what I'm trying to get to with Kelsey. Kelsey's a good route runner, a good catcher, no doubt. But Kelsey isn't going to block and stop these people from doing all that, right? And that's what people need to realize is that there's being a good offensive player and then there's being a good player. Gronkowski was a good player. Anybody blitzed, Gronkowski was like, boom, put him, stand him up, right? And Kelsey doesn't do that. That's why I think he's going to be the GOAT for a long time. I don't know if a tight end could pass him. Which I do think is the new model. I think a tight end and a quarterback is the new way to go. And I think a lot of teams are starting to showcase that with Rob Gronkowski and Tom Brady, and then Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce. You got Brock Bowers over there in Oakland or Las Vegas now, who I think is going to be balling. So I think tight ends are the new way to go. They're faster. They're getting stronger. They're big, but they can move however they want to move. They got like that kid Tyler Warren. That guy's older than me, but that guy Tyler Warren from Penn State is gonna be a baller. He's gonna be a man on a mission wherever he decides to go. That guy's gonna be a beast, as well as the young cat from Texas. So that's what happened in the Super Bowl. I mean, not really much to talk about. The Eagles just kind of whooped them and really put a beat down, which I didn't think was gonna happen. But I mean, I had them winning, but not by 28 points. Oh, I'm sorry, 18 points. So yeah, let's move on a little bit. Let's get into some NBA news, and the reason I want to get to some NBA is because it's gonna heat up right now. It's gonna pick up pace, well, MLB, but NBA is gonna pick up, and I think there's a lot of things that we haven't discussed. And if I do go over some things that we went to last time, my apologies, but this is like what I prepared, and I can't remember if we talked about this or not, but since last podcast, there have been a couple big moves. We got Jimmy Butler to the Warriors, which was a huge trade because there was a whole, it seemed like not movement, but a whole big controversy around Jimmy Butler and the Heat, which I think I was tired of Jimmy, but I was tired of Jimmy Butler complaining wherever he went. And he's been on like, what, 4 different teams, Sixers, um, what else did he go with? He started with, Butler start with, did he play for the Bulls a little bit? I can't remember where Jimmy Butler started from. I can't remember what team he originated from. Like what team Jimmy Butler really made his. Oh, the Timberwolves. I think he played for a little bit. And where did Jimmy Butler shine? Oh my God, I honestly blanked. I don't know where Jimmy Butler like originally came from. What team he really made his noise from? Whatever. Yeah. So they traded him. They traded for the Warriors. Give up a good amount of things, a lot of things. They give up Wiggins, Kyle Anderson, and Dennis Schroeder. But this isn't an issue that I think was the main priority. And I think the main issue or the main priority was Butler's extension. I think he got overpaid. I mean, 2 years, 121 million, that's $16.5 million a year. I think he's overpaid, and I think they give up a lot for that. I think Butler's a better version of Wiggins. I think that could be made true, and I think pairing him up with Stephen Curry and Draymond Green will be good. But in terms of what they gave up, I mean, you gave up a lot. You gave up 3 players for him, which I get it, but Jimmy Butler isn't a Luka Doncic. He isn't a Kevin Durant. I don't think he's one of these top guys anymore. And if you would ask me this a couple years ago, of course. But the Warriors almost feel like they didn't need a Butler. They needed more of a big which boom, box, boom, take it out of Curry. And they give up Kyle Anderson for him, who's big, and they give up a Schroeder, who was all right, but Wiggins isn't. I would have much rather liked to see them trade somebody other than Wiggins and put Wiggins at the 2 or the 4, or Butler at the 2 and the 3. But we'll see how that pairs up. But the Heat, on the other hand, received a boatload of stuff. The Heat received Wiggins, Kyle Anderson, Davion Mitchell, and a protected 2025 first-round pick. The Heat got better. The Heat just secured their depth, right? The Heat just secured their depth right then and there. When they got Tyler Hero balling, they got Bam Adebayo playing his game, and they got obviously other players in that team who are contributing really well. But just picking up those 3 players, it's huge. It's huge for them. And as well as they secured a first-round pick that's protected, obviously 2025, like I mentioned. But the Heat are going to be good for a while as well. They're going to seem like the Kings, who I think really secure their future, but they also have a good foundation going right now. And I think if Jimmy Butler did cause any outrage or not outrage, but some issues in the locker room, I think that'll get cleared up now that he's gone. I think them adding those new pieces will be well. So as the Heat, I think they'll make up. I think the Heat will go farther than the Warriors in the playoffs. I think they'll be suited better, and defensively they'll be better. Offensively they'll won't be better, but I think they'll be able to compete at that similar level to them. But I think the Heat won the trade. I do think the Heat won the trade in a sense where I know the Warriors could be seen as, oh, we got Jimmy Butler, hell yeah. But you gave up 3 players, and the Heat got 3 good players. It's like, come on, But then there was another trade, which was Mark Williams to the Lakers for, I believe, Cam Reddish, Don the Connect, and a pick, which it didn't go through. Mark Williams, he fell to physical. And this is a big blow. I think this should, and I know this sounds dumb, but I think they should have to forfeit a pick, the Hornets. And I don't know if that's a rule or anything. I'm not really into the whole business and logistics about basketball trades. But if it's there's no consequence. I think there should be a consequence because if you're the Lakers, you have to almost sit back and realize, dude, the trade deadline passed. We can't make a trade anymore because you didn't let us know he was hurt, right? Because I mean, you wouldn't trade for a guy that's hurt, or that's actively hurt, or yeah, wouldn't out. So it sucks, and I think this is a bad image for the Hornets because they did give up a lot of pieces, and boom, right back here, Mark Williams and LaMelo Ball again, right? So it's not a good look for the Hornets. I think this is a big blow to the Lakers though, as they desperately need interior defense. I know Shams went on ESPN and said that they're going to go out and try to get one. I don't know how that's going to work, but I think that the Lakers do need a really big, do need an interior defender very, very urgently because that Luka and LeBron played yesterday, balled out. I mean, these guys are both ball dominant and IQ off the charts, but they're gonna need somebody in the defensive, in the interior defensive, the defensive slot. They're gonna need somebody with Jackson Hayes. They're gonna need somebody that could actually stop and protect the rim. They really need somebody who can get a rebound. And I think without Jackson Hayes, the Lakers team has no big, so I think they're gonna have to really improve on that. Another big trade was Bogdanovich to the Clippers, which is a pretty good pick. I think this was a good pickup for the Clippers. I mean, a guy who could shoot. I think a guy who can really add benefit them in the offensive game, benefit them, and he's a big man, so I think he could defensively hold his own a little bit. But the Clippers really needed another offensive spark with a guy pair up with Kawhi and all. They did send over a good amount. They sent over 2025, 2026, 2027 second rounders. They did send a return to man and Bones Hillard. So they did send over a good amount for a guy like Bogdanovich, but we'll see how it shows up. I know that guy used to ball out really well. He's a good, like I mentioned, a great defensive big. But we'll see how he turns out. But they did also sign Ben Simmons, who's a big name. I don't think he's the level Ben Simmons was when he was winning Rookie of the Year or whatnot. But Ben Simmons could ball up. Ben Simmons could pass. I think Ben Simmons will benefit their defensive side of the ball and add another big man on the offensive end. If he could somehow resurge the old Ben Simmons, be the resurgence of Ben Simmons or whatnot, I think it'll benefit the Clippers. But we'll see how that ends up. That's one of those things where you can't really count on because of how he's been playing recently. So we'll see how that goes. Ben Simmons hopefully can go back to the Angels. The Clippers can get back on their game. But right now, I think the Clippers are starting to fall a little bit in terms of the ranking. I think they were fifth at some point in the Clippers, and they got dropped down to 7, 6, which is in the West. I believe 3 to 6. They're all around the same thing. So we'll see how that goes. The Bucks swapping Middleton with Kuzma, which was pretty crazy. I mean, I don't think Middleton's a slouch or anything. I don't think Kuzma's a slouch either, but that one I don't really know what to say too much. We'll see how that turns out. I mean, Kuzma's alright, decent guy, but we'll see how that turns out. That was a pretty weird pick. There's acquiring Brandon Ingram, and I think they signed him for 120 mil, 3 years, which was crazy. I mean, good for the Raptors, sending a guy like Brandon Ingram, who I think is a solid guy. He does get hurt a decent amount, but he's a solid guy, solid player. I don't know exactly where the Raptors are seated, what number, but I don't think they're in top playoff contention, which I'm for a fact they're not. They're probably around the 7 to 10 margin. But if they get in, I mean, Brandon Ingram will be beneficial for them. Don't really know what else they're going to kick off with or whatnot. The interesting side is the West. The West, because of these duels that they have, whether it's Jokic and Jamal Murray, LeBron and Luka, you got Curry and Wiggins now, you got what other big? Houston has a good team with Jalen Williams. I think it's Jalen Williams, right? Yeah, it's Jalen Williams, I believe his name is. Or Jalen Green. I'm sorry, Jalen Green. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Chet or whoever, or the other Jalen Williams who pairs up. Who else is in the West? It's big. Oh, John Morant and Bane is up there for a good duo. But realistically, I think the Thunder runs the West. I think the Thunder runs the NBA. I predicted the Knicks and Thunder and the NBA championship. The reason why I think the Thunder are just gonna run the West, they're a terrible matchup for everybody, and they can match up with anybody. They could mix up their rotation however they want because of the much depth they have and the size. you look at it, nobody really can match up with them in terms of size for size, skill for skill. There's other teams like the Nuggets who can really, with Jokic, eliminate the Thunder's defensive interior. Um, on the interior defensive slot for the Thunder, but ultimately, I think the Thunder they're just too big. I mean, Shea Gilgeous-Alexander's 6'6". Who are you gonna have guard him? A small forward, a shooting guard, and then have somebody go guard Jalen Williams, who's their shooting guard, who's like 6'5", I guess. You get me? Like it's they're just too good and too big for everybody. Nobody really can match up with them offensively and defensively. Me personally, I think Thunder whoops everybody in the West until they gets around the Western Conference Final, the semis. But ultimately, we'll see how that ends up going up. You know, we'll see how the Thunder show up and how they can perform. Other big news we got. Actually, no, I want to talk about a little bit of MLB. We'll go to MLB and then we'll talk about UFC after and some boxing. MLB spring training is coming up. I'm very excited for that as a Dodger fan. You know, I'm hoping we repeat and all. I'm predicting us to repeat actually, but I'm really hoping for spring training to be great. I'm looking for a lot of players. I'm really hoping to see Rogi Sasaki pitch. Roki's just so electric. I mean, explosive, very explosive windup, and I know most people are on all windup explosive. Not really. When you look at a guy like Shohei, he's very calm, cool, and collected. When he throws, he's not as explosive. Everybody obviously looks hard when they throw with their hands, but Shohei's very controlled with his delivery. As a guy like Roki Sasaki, who's very just boom, explodes, really uses that back leg, gets really low, and explodes with that, hinges that back hip. Guys like Skeens, who's very controlled as well, but then throws 101 miles an hour. You guys got like Clase, who's for control. Trinan, who doesn't really look like he throws hard, but he throws 96 with movement. Blake Snell's another one who doesn't really look like he throws as hard as he actually throws. But then there's guys who try and really have that much power. Roki Sasaki, one of them throws 101, but looks like he throws 101. You got guys from like Wheeler's another one that's controlled, but he's very and Aaron Nola, but they throw towards the lower end of the 90s. You got a guy like who's somebody I could explain that has a very explosive delivery and just whips the ball out of their hand. I'm going to go with like Vesia. Vesia is very explosive. Doesn't even throw that hard either compared to other guys. Corbin Burns also is very controlled. Who's really? Oh, Glasnow. Glasnow's a perfect example of explosive. Glasnow is just and boom, all forward. Glasnow's one of the most explosive pitches I see, and his ball really kicks out of his hand. I mean, his hands are huge. Probably one of the biggest hands in the big leagues, you know. But I wanted to touch in about some players going into MLB who I think are my top 10 players to look out for going into the MLB. There's a couple honorable mentions. I mean, start off the list. Honorable mentions. I got Jordan, and the reason I don't have Jordan as high, and on my list, he's probably the number one outside the list looking in, is simply because I think the Astros got worse, and I don't think the Astros are gonna have that stable protection around Jordan anymore. And a lot of people, what other people don't understand is, yes, a player could be really good and really carry a team and put up crazy stats, but if you don't have much help around you, it really, really almost diminishes your value to other pitchers. I'm sorry, a good pitcher facing a good hitter, but with not so good of a lineup around him to protect him and really keep him stable in that spot, the pitchers don't have to give you a good pitch. They're going to walk you. And that was the main thing with Judge and Soto that I don't realize that. That's what's so impressive. Soto was protected by Judge most of the time, right? And yes, Stanton was behind Judge, but Stanton isn't a guy who's going to rake every pitch, right? He strikes out a lot. Soto walks a lot, but it doesn't protect Judge. And Judge putting up the numbers he had was crazy because it was almost himself. Guys like Otani who batted leadoff towards the middle and end of the season, had Mookie behind him, Freeman behind him, Teoscar, had all this stability that they know that they can't walk him. And it happened many times where they walked him and Mookie would hit a grand slam or hit a bomb. Happened against the Angels. So That's something you have to look forward to. And I think Jordan's going to lose that, losing Tucker. And I don't know if Bregman's going to resign, but losing Tucker was a huge thing for them. It really takes some security out of that lineup and takes security out of him. Another guy is Lindor. Lindor, I would have him made the top 10, but especially because he was MVP runner up last year. But I think so. I think a lot of some of the other guys that were on the list are just going to pass him up in terms of that. Freddie Freeman, there was another one. I think Freddie Freeman was arguably one of the best first basemen, but I think he's looking in at the top 10 right now. Obviously, any of these honorable mentions can make the top 10. I'm not saying that they can't. I'm saying that this is people who I think are less likely than the actual top 10. Freddie Freeman's getting a little older. His numbers did drop a little bit last year, but I think he could have rebound year. But obviously, I don't think it will be as good as other years. But Freeman is definitely looking in. I have a guy like Jarren Duran who's looking in. I think Jarren Duran was really beneficial for the Red Sox last year. A really good player, a guy who worked on his defense and became a better defensive outfielder, center fielder. Guy who just rakes on offense. Good lefty hitter, very good speed, good power. All-Star Game MVP. Just him going back to the All-Star Game, I think he'll perform. I think he'll have a really good year this year. I'm sure he'll get to that next level, and he's very young. I have Adley Rutschman as the last guy looking in. Adley Rutschman is one of the best catchers in all of baseball. Arguably, can make a number one case. I don't think he's number one. I think there's still guys above him just because of his offensive struggles last year. But he's one of those guys where I think he adds value because of his switch hitting ability and his defensive, his how good defensively he is, the ability to call a game, the ability to keep runners on check, runners humble. And I think he's the last guy looking in. Get the top 10. At number 10, I have Bryce Harper. I have Harper at 10 position because Harper is getting better at first base. I think he really adds that value to the Phillies, who's a guy who mashes in the middle of that lineup. Lefty bat was one of the greatest players, best players of the generation, best offensive players, arguably, also defensively before he got hurt, before he messed up his arm. I have Harper at 10. I don't think I have him higher just because he is getting older, and a lot of these young guys are going to bump up, and I think they're going to really outperform a lot of these guys who played really good last year. I believe are going to take a really high step next year. Me personally, I think there's probably 4 guys in here who I think from last year are really going to jump up, and I think they had a really good last year. So come on, like from really good last year to bump up there. Number 9, we got Mookie Betts. I got Mookie Betts because I think Mookie Betts is just more versatile than almost any player here. When you look at it, he could play any position. He plays shortstop, second base, and the outfield. His ability to hit is really well as well. Doesn't chase out the zone. Really good contact hitter. Could smack, could mash. Moving him at the 2 spot or 1 spot, Mookie's on here honestly because of the security he has in that lineup as well. He's the number 1 or number 2 hitter in that lineup. If he's at the number 1, guess what's sitting behind him? Either Ohtani, Teoscar, Freeman. If he's hitting number 2, guess what's sitting behind him? Ohtani, Teoscar, or Freeman, or even Edman. So he has such good stability in that. He has good stability in that lineup spot. He'll have a great beneficial year, great year that the Dodgers will benefit from. Do I think Mookie Betts will play like an MVP? I don't think he will, but I think he has the capability of to, of course. And the main part is his defense adds that value. It's just he could play anywhere, and he's a Gold Glover any position. So that's what I think. I'm sorry, Mookie Betts at the 9. At the 8, the second pitcher I have one of the 2 pitchers on here. I have Paul Skeens. Paul Skeens is the guy who, other than Ohtani, because Ohtani can hit, is one of the pitchers I think could win a Cy Young and MVP. I believe he's my favorite to win a Cy Young award. He's just too electric. Throws 101 casually, 92-mile-an-hour slider or whatnot. He good changeup, good everything. Yeah, he's going to incorporate some other pitch, I believe, this year. But when you look at it, Paul Skeens shuts all these guys out, and he only got drafted last year, 2 years ago at LSU. So he's one of these guys who were drafted out of college, and then he's already playing the pros and dominating. Posted up a 1-point-something ERA for how little he played, or for a good amount of time he played, but obviously didn't get it. I believe he'll get a Cy Young Award winner. I do see him getting an MVP in sometime in his career. Paul Skeens is too good. I think he'll dominate almost through the board. Maybe win a Triple Crown from a Cy Young, get Ks, ERA, and WHIP. So that'll be interesting to see how good he can get. At the end of the day, he's super young. He's under 25. At the 7, I have Jose Ramirez. The reason Jose Ramirez isn't higher, this is probably the best third baseman in baseball, is the simple fact that his team isn't as good. And I know that sounds like I'm talking, or it's unfair. It's not right to him, but he's not gonna have the backup, the support for him to really get these pitches. Look at it in, I believe it was the ALDS against the Tigers or ALCS against the Yankees. They didn't face him. They didn't want to face him. They would rather go against Bo Naylor, Josh Naylor. These are guys who don't have the offensive ability to make them be feared. Jose Ramirez is the only one on that team that's feared, and then they lost Andres Jimenez. So when you look at it, they got a little bit worse. Jose Ramirez is going to be in the 3 spot. But guess what? Take the base. I'll give you the base. I'm going to go to the number 4 guy, right? That's the only reason why he's not higher. But Jose Ramirez obviously is one of the best players in this generation. Very underrated. He should have a couple MVPs or an MVP. Switch hitter too. At number 6, I have Gunnar Henderson. The reason I have Gunnar Henderson this high is he's a young phenom from Baltimore, shortstop. He's going to be arguably the top 5 player in the league this year. I think he'll bump up. He's too good offensively. Lefty bat, rakes anything on defense. He's solid as well. Plays for a Baltimore team. I think Baltimore will benefit a lot. He'll benefit a lot from Baltimore's high seed this year in the MVP race. Baltimore, I could see them winning a division or 2. I could winning a division or possibly locking up a top seed, or they could just have a decent year. But other the way, they're going to make the playoffs, and Gunner's going to be a lot of the credit. Number 5. So I have number 5, Juan Soto. And I know I mentioned earlier Juan Soto was in a top 5 player or not, but I have him coming in at 5 just because the Mets are going to surround him with better players. I think Pete Alonso, that re-signing for them was huge. They have Francisco Lindor, who's probably going to hit in front of him. And these are players that I think that Juan Soto is going to benefit from. And with the Yankees, he didn't really have that because all he had was Judge behind him. And instead, now he's going to have Lindor in front of him, who can get on a lot. People are going to make mistakes too because they're not going to want to face Soto runners on. Then they got Pete Alonso behind him. So he's going to clean up damage regardless. He's either going to clean up or guys going to clean him up, you know? That's the only reason I have him that high. If he was better defensively, I would have him at number 1 or number 2. But he's just atrocious at defense. His defense is terrible and his base running is second to least, right? So that really stops me from picking Soto over a lot of these guys. And when I look at it and when I evaluate these players, you get guys who are just, yes, they might hit or will walk a little less than him, hit maybe 3, 5 bombs, 10 bombs less than him, but they're going to steal 10 more bases, 20 more bases. They're going to make incredible plays. They're going to save runs, right? And that's the main thing of the game is you have to be all around. He's just not. He's just a really high-level hitter. And at the number 4, I have Vladimir Guerrero, and this is one of the guys where I truly believe is underrated. Last year, he hit for 323, had a decent amount of RBIs, good amount of homers. He's going to have a great year. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, he's going to have a contract year. I could see him getting paid a boatload of money by Toronto, or he's going to either go on an venture and get paid a lot of money as well. He's super young, guy who can rake, and at first base, he's a really good defensive first baseman. He's not a slouch or anything. He's a great defensive first baseman who can mesh. I have him at the 4. At the 3, I have Aaron Judge. And Aaron Judge, I had him 1 last year because obviously he won MVP, and I think he would have won MVP over anybody. But Aaron Judge is going to put up a good amount of numbers. Losing Juan Soto is a big blow to him, but adding the Bellinger, adding these players will also hopefully bring some dynamic games to that lineup, dynamic feeling. But ultimately, Aaron Judge is gonna have to have another crazy year for him to be number 1 again, because I think the number 2 guy on this list is gonna be above him in the AL, and that's Bobby Witt Jr. When you look at Bobby Witt Jr., this guy does everything. This guy is great at defense, great at offense, and base running is probably second to none, behind maybe Ellie De Cruz and Ohtani. But that's just how good he is. And I do see he's probably going to be the highest paid baseball player of all time when he's a free agent. This guy's like 22, 23 years old, balling out of his mind. He's my MVP favorite for the AL. Is Bobby Witt Jr., no doubt about it. Is Bobby Witt. Kansas City's going to have a big year, I believe. Kansas City's really going to take that next level. They're gonna get back to their World Series. I don't think they'll make the World Series, but they'll start to really sway players to come sign with them. Bobby Witt Jr. is the reason that's happening, and that's why he's number 2. But number 1, obviously, there's no doubt about it, is Shohei Ohtani. Shohei Ohtani is going to pitch this year. He's going to hit. You can't really put him above it. You can't really put anybody above him, especially if he's going to hit for 50 bombs. I think he'll hit like 30-something, 40 bombs this year. Hit maybe 300, 290, a couple with 100 with the Bucks, something RBIs. But his ERA will be, I expect it to be around 3, and then K's probably be around 100. We'll see, depending, because he's going to pitch late in May. But you can't have anybody over him. He's just the best player in baseball for a reason, and there's a reason why he's making that much money. But that's my top 10 going to MLB. I want to hear what you guys have to say. But let's get into some fights. So over the weekend, we had DDP versus Tatiana Suarez. This is a crazy fight. I mean, guys, when you look at it, DDP versus Strickland and Zhang Weili versus Tatiana Suarez. Good card, decent card. I mean, let's get into the co-main event, which is Zhang Weili, and she just smashed, man. She's too good. She's too good for a lot of these women in the one. I think she's too good for 115. When you look at it, she needs to move up and fight Valentina Shevchenko. Suarez was the number 1 contender, and everybody said that this was the matchup that needed to happen, and Zhang Weili walked right through her. Suarez didn't have anything for her. I know her only chance of winning was the wrestling, and it almost seemed like she got out wrestled for a little bit. And Zhang Weili, in most cases of her fights, is just too dominant and too technically sound. But yeah, her and Valentina Shevchenko needs to happen immediately. There's no other fight that needs to happen besides them, but between them two. But that's all I have for that fight. That fight was it was literally like a 4-1 fight, 5-0 fight. Then you got DDP and Strickland. This was another one where I was kind of like, Strickland isn't getting better. And I get it. We won a title maybe a year ago or whatnot. How's he going to get better? His fighting stance is the same. He's always the same. He doesn't get better. He doesn't make adjustments based on fighters. DDP is just too good all around for teep kicks and a jab, right? Sure, it worked the first fight, but it's not going to work again. It's not. It's in like any boxing fight. The minute you find someone that's better overall and you fight them the first time, the second time, they're probably going to whip your ass, or they're going to make the necessary changes that they're going to have to make adjustments, and you're not going to win. He got outclassed 50, 45, 49, 46, whatever. DDP is getting better as it goes. DDP is just great. Just great. He outclassed Strickland in any matter. Outstruck him. He out-wrestled him. Out-grappled him. Whatever. DDP's cardio is up there with anybody besides Merab. Merab's on the league zone, obviously. But top 5, DDP's top 5 cardio. I mean, he's the 5th round broke. 3rd round, I think he broke Strickland's nose. But after that, he started pushing the pace in the 5th round. He's like, I can go for 5 more. This is a guy where he's a champion. He wants to fight the best guys in the world. He's fought Strickland, Whitaker, Adesanya. He fought Brunson. If he's gonna fight Hamzat next, I think he beats Hamzat. This is the way it's gonna go. Either Hamzat smashes him in the 1st round, or DDP beats him 40, 47, 49, 46, whatever you want to do. DDP is too good. And when you look at it, there's a chance he won't even smash him because his defensive wrestling is just too good and his jiu-jitsu is at a high level. He out-wrestles all these guys. So a guy like Hamzat, who, yes, likes to shoot, but has cardio issues and fatigue issues towards the end of the fight, is going to have a hands full with DDP. DDP is a good champion, and I don't see him losing. I don't see him losing to any of these guys recently. I think the next fight for him is either going to be, what's going to be Hamzat, but if he gets by Hamzat, he has to go up and fight Pereira and Ankalaev, and then at the bottom, it'll be Imavov versus Baralho for an interim title fight, and that'll come off. But after he beats Hamzat, he needs to go up and fight Alex Pereira and Ankalaev. I think he's big enough. Will he have the better enough skill? I don't know yet, but will he has good enough skill, but will he be big enough? I can't know. Honestly, I mean, Pereira's huge, but can he out-wrestle Pereira? I think he will. And going into this, like, a little bit of boxing, and I wanted to touch up on this because Keyshawn Davis is going to fight for the title on February 14th against Benes Burchik, who beat Navarrete. If I'm not mistaken, I believe he did beat Navarrete for the title. This is going to be an interesting fight. I think it'll be a good fight. Keyshawn Davis is my favorite to win. I believe Keyshawn will outbox him for most of the fight. Keyshawn Davis is legit. Guy who's tall, lengthy, can pop, really good boxer. And Burchik, whose last fight was against Navarrete, it's completely 2 different styles. And I think it's gonna be overwhelming for him. I think Keyshawn's gonna be in his face, hit him, jab him, right hand hooks to the body and whatnot. And I think Keyshawn Davis will avoid most of the damage. And that's mainly the fight. I think Keyshawn with this fight's gonna propel himself to the next level. With Keyshawn Davis is an interesting fighter, feared by a lot of these top fighters, rightfully so. He doesn't have the name. He doesn't have a big name. A lot of you guys probably don't even know who Keyshawn Davis is, but doesn't have that huge name as a Teofimo, as a Gervonta, as a Ryan Garcia, as a Devin Haney. Who, if you lose to these guys, guess what? I mean, a boatload of money. You lose to Keyshawn Davis, you're not fighting a big guy. You're not fighting a guy who has a huge name, right? And that's the part. But Benes Barichek also needs a name to his resume. Barichek needs a guy with a huge name to propel him to get to fight those guys at 135, hopefully land a tank fight or whatnot. So this is a fight that benefits both guys. Keyshawn will be a champion. Barichek will get a name. That's the best part about it. Best part of the fight is you get guys like that who really want to match up with each other. And then a little bit of some news about Canelo and Jaime Munguia. It was a pretty good fight. Pretty good, not a good fight. Good matching up. I think they're gonna match up really well with each other. It's gonna be very interesting. I believe. I don't know if I believe it'll work and benefit Munguia. And Munguia needs somebody with defensive head movement and full work of getting in and out that Eddie Reynoso can supply with him with. But most importantly, Munguia is going to need knowledge on IQ of the game. He just knows how to get in there and start throwing bombs at you. He's gonna and he's got a rematch with Bruno Saracen. They announced today. Bruno Saracen or Scarce or Saracen. That'll be interesting. I have Munguia probably beating him. I believe Munguia will probably make the adjustments necessary, as he did hurt Saracen Bruno early in the first fight. And Eddie Reynoso is so good at not taking unnecessary risk with his fighters. Canelo doesn't take unnecessary risk. Canelo doesn't get in there when you're hurt and start banging you, knowing there's something coming back. That's what Munguia needs to get installed in his head. Not to turn into a firefight. Keep it your fight. You're too good offensively. You hit too hard with two good combinations for you to there's no reason for you to put yourself in a situation where he can do that to you. There's no need for that. Your goal is to hit him and not get hit. But there's also, we're not going to run away, because we don't run away. In boxing, if you run away, you're not a good boxer. You're just a good runner. Canelo's the perfect example. He likes to get in there and move his head. But there's guys who go in there like Navarrete, who loves just box and hit each other. But that does come with risk. Gets caught, gets hurt, fight's over. That's what happened the first fight with Munguia and Bruno. So we'll see how that ends up turning up. We'll see how they go. They just released a video about it, which I thought was a cool video. I like watching guys train like that. But we'll get into some questions from Instagram. We'll see how it goes. We got Noah Madrimov or Madrigal. Roki Sasaki getting used to MLB pitchers' rest days. I think he will, especially because he's not going to pitch as often. I believe the Dodgers have built such a good roster, especially with signing up Kershaw today, that they're going to have like a 6, 7-man, 8-man rotation, that a lot of these guys won't carry a load because injuries are going to happen. I believe guys like Glasnow and Ohtani are going to be monitored very, very thoroughly. I don't think they're going to be just thrown out there every 5th day. Guys like Sasaki will get the reps. Guys like Blake Snell, Blake Snell probably monitored here and there as well. Yamamoto will get a lot of the reps. These guys who are younger and more hungry for games and innings, I think will get the starts and all. But I see Roki getting a 6-day pitching rotation and rest. Where do you rank Hurts after the Super Bowl QBs right now? This is tough because you have to sit back and think, is he top 10? Because he's for sure not top 5. Top 5, you got Burrow, Allen, Lamar, Mahomes, and then you throw in Jaden Daniels, right? So now you have to ask, is he better than is he within the next 5? You have to throw names out there like CJ Stroud. Is he a better quarterback than CJ Stroud? Yes, he won, but CJ puts up the numbers. You got a guy like Herbert. You got guys like who was the guy from the NFC that was solid? I say that as much as I hate to say it, Dak Prescott comes to mind. Guy who could ball out, but doesn't get it done in the postseason. So that's a tough one. I think now that I'm thinking about it, I think it is safe to say he's top 10. I think he's top 10. Maybe you can make an argument top 8, but you still got to go through. Just like I said, Justin Herbert. You got Bo Nix. You have to see in that equation. You have guys I think he's top 8 actually. Now that I'm thinking about it, I can't find a guy who could put above him that are not in the top 5, right? We got another one. Since Kike is back, this is from Sebas. Is a two-peat set, the back-to-back. I think it's set without him, regardless, to be honest. I believe Kike was a good addition, but they locked up guys that they needed, Conforto and Edmund. Those two guys alone fill up for Kike's spot. So I think Dodgers will win back-to-back, no doubt about it. Shout out to you, my boy. Will Luka and LeBron find their chemistry? This is from Sam. This one, I think they will. I think they're too good enough, and they're too smart enough to play with each other, to like let their feelings and emotions get in the way. They're gonna find their chemistry. LeBron's played with all types of players. Luka's new, but Luka knows that he has to look up to LeBron in a sense and learn from him. But LeBron's gonna find a way. LeBron's gonna find a way to play. It's just about them getting a big man, to be honest. But yeah. Did KC show their true colors without the refs calls, or did Philly simply outclass them? I think Philly just outclassed them, to be honest. I think Philly was just too good of a team. I think even if you would have gave freaking Chiefs calls, it wouldn't have mattered. I mean, the Eagles didn't blitz once, and they got 6 sacks. They're gonna win every game. Now the Chiefs, the only department I say they were better in was quarterback. Mahomes was a better quarterback, obviously, no doubt about it. But every other part, the Eagles were better. Defensive line, offensive line, defensive secondary. Well, the DBs are probably a little better for the Chiefs, but not really. But then you have guys like, and then you have the backs. Saquon's better than both the guys in Kansas City. The receiving core, you got A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert over Kelsey, Worthy, Hollywood Brown, and Juju Smith-Schuster. So I don't think the Chiefs would have been able to do anything really. I think Philly just was too superior in all aspects of the game. That was you, my boy. Jordan, shout out to my boy. Give you a big shout out. I know you just moved on from your job. Hope that the next job goes really well. Hope everything goes good. All your wishes are true. You deserve it, my boy. Nobody better that I know deserves a better job, improvement, a new a step up in life. I hope everything goes good. Like I mentioned, God bless you, bro. And yeah, hope you keep me in touch. Hope you stay in touch, my boy. But yeah, guys, that's it for the podcast for episode 6. We went over a couple things. Got something to talk about for the next one, but we'll see how it goes. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to episode 6. Yeah, it's episode 6, huh? For episode 6 of the Freddy's Radio podcast. Thank you guys so much. God bless. I'll see you guys next week. Thank you.